What is going on, guys? Welcome to my college football recap of Week 10. Now, before I get into this video, if you've liked my content, subscribe to the channel and please like the video. But let's start it off with number 1, Ohio State at Rutgers. This was a very weird game. Ohio State, they were favored by 18.5, and they covered it, but they didn't really look like they covered the spread with the way they played in that game. They were down 9-7. Rutgers was getting close to scoring a touchdown again and taking the lead by 2 touchdowns, and they throw a pick 6. Rutgers really competed in that game, and Ohio State did not play a great game. And there's really got to be some question marks on if Ohio State is the number 1 team in the nation. But they did survive, and they did win. So moving on to next week, we'll see what they can do. And on to the next game, number 7 Texas at number 23 Kansas State. This was a very close game, as Texas won it 33-30. Kansas State really battled with them from being down 27-7. They came back and almost won the game. They took it into overtime. But Kansas State ultimately couldn't finish the game, and I gotta feel bad for Kansas State. I mean, this is really what lost them the game, is that missed extra point. That's what ultimately won Texas the game. So, Texas survives, and they're going on to next week, playing a tough game. They will be playing at TCU. They should be able to win it, but these next couple of road games aren't going to be tough, and then into their last game against Texas Tech won't be an easy one either. Don't be surprised if Texas takes another loss. On to another very good game. Number 10, Ole Miss playing Texas A&M at home. Ole Miss would win the game 38-35. Got to give props to this Ole Miss team. A lot of people would expect them to have like 2 or 3 losses by now, but they're still 8-1. With their only loss coming to a top 10 team in Alabama, who is above them. Alabama's looked really good this season despite that Texas loss. But Ole Miss, they're playing really good football right now. Texas A&M is not a bad team. Texas A&M plays pretty good defense, and Ole Miss put up 38 on them. So Ole Miss has a good offense, but they got a tough test against Georgia next week, and that might just ruin their playoff hopes and their hopes in the SEC West. But ultimately, Ole Miss's conference championship hopes are basically over unless Alabama somehow manages to lose their last 2 conference games against Kentucky and Auburn, because Alabama does have that head-to-head, and they are 1 game ahead of Ole Miss. So I do not see Ole Miss making the playoffs, but you still got to give props to them on the good season. And on to the next game, Clemson beating number 15 Notre Dame. This is a game where I picked Notre Dame to win, and you got to give props to Clemson for shutting up some haters in this game. They had a shot to go under 50, but they didn't want to do that. I know Clemson's not living up to their hype at all, but this is a good win for Clemson. Turn their season around a little bit. They're not going to get anywhere, but they could definitely have an 8-4 season with a decent bowl game. And they could be ready going into next year. We'll have to see what Dabo Swinney does. But Dabo Swinney, he needs to adapt to the new college football and the transfer portal and everything that's going on, because all he does is complain. But good win for Clemson, 31-23. Putting up 31 points on Notre Dame, that's pretty good. And Tennessee beat UConn 59-3. I'm not really going to talk about that game. Utah, they beat Arizona State 55-3. I will give props to Utah for putting 55 points up on Arizona State, but Arizona State's nothing special, so not really much to say about that game. Army beats Air Force 23-3. Oh my god. Talk about losing to a bad team. Air Force beats Navy, but they come back and lose to Army. They don't just lose to Army, they lose by 20. That's a bad look for Air Force. This was a team that could have went undefeated, but now they won't go undefeated, and they might have trouble making it into a New Year's Six bowl. It might actually go to Tulane. I was very high on this Air Force team, but I might back off them a little bit after that loss. Georgia beats Missouri 30-21. I expected Georgia to win this game. They win at 30-21. Carson Beck played a pretty decent game. He's not a terrible quarterback. And they're playing without Brock Bowers. Carson Beck went 21 for 32, 254 pass yards, 2 touchdowns. Good job to Missouri for competing in this game, but it wasn't enough to get the job done. Missouri is 7-2 now, and Georgia is 9-0. And on to the next game, number 4, Florida State at Pitt. This was a very weird game, but, I mean, what do you expect when you're playing at Pitt? It doesn't matter how bad they are. Sometimes Pitt can do the unexpected and go up 7-0 into the second quarter. Not into the first quarter, into the second quarter. At halftime, Florida State did score 10, and it looked like they were going to run away with this game, but they did only win 24-7. That Florida State offense did not score as much as a lot of people would have expected, but a win is a win, and they do pull away in that game. and they still are definitely in the playoff picture. This was a huge upset. Number 22, Oklahoma State, beating Oklahoma at home 27-24. For a second, it looked like Ole Gordon got hurt and was going to be out of the game for good, but he did come back, and he did have a really good game, as he did run for 137 yards, 33 carries, and 2 touchdowns. He did not play as good as he did the last couple weeks, rushing over 200 yards, but you can't expect so much out of this kid. He still ran for over 100 yards on that Oklahoma defense, and they still got the job done. So good job for Oklahoma State, and good job to their defense for playing surprisingly well. They caused Dylan Gabriel to throw an interception. Oklahoma State's defense looked really good in that game, and Oklahoma State really has a shot in the Big 12. And don't be surprised if they can knock off Texas in the Big 12 championship and ruin the Big 12's playoff hopes. Another game that happened was 11 Penn State at Maryland. They just destroyed them 51-15. Not really much to say about this game, but I will give props to their offense for scoring 51, though a lot of those points were set up because of their defense. But still, good job to Drew Aller. He was 25 for 34, 240 yards, playing against a Maryland team that did have a good defense, but I don't know what's happened to them. They've really gone downhill this year, and they've fallen off that hype train. Not really surprised, but that's about it with that game. Louisville beats Virginia Tech 34-3. Louisville's only loss comes to Pitt this season, which is very weird, losing to Pitt, because Pitt's not a good team. But like I said, playing at Pitt is a different story, because sometimes they overperform. But Louisville did get the job done, and holding Virginia Tech to 3 points as well. So good job to Louisville. They are still alive in the ACC. And a game that surprised me in how low scoring it was, but not only that, East Carolina competing with Tulane, only losing 13-10. Tulane just keeps slipping away in these games, winning by like 1 possession. Tulane, they're still 8-1, and they might be the team to make it into a New Year's Six bowl, but Tulane does not look as good as they do last year, but it's really hard to say. But give props to Michael Pratt, 16 for 25, 213 yards, 1 touchdown, even in a very low scoring game. He played alright. And on to the next game. Number 6, Oregon at Cal. Oregon did not play their best game. Like, I'll be straight up. They won 63-19, but they did not play their best game. They had a lot of penalties, and Oregon really underperformed in part of this game, but they did take it away in the second half. Bo Nix threw an interception on the first play of the game, but it wasn't really his fault. And they gave up 7 points on a defensive touchdown that Cal got. This game should have been like 63-12 or like 63-7. Really, the 19 points that Oregon gave up, it shouldn't have been that many points, but they did get the win, and I'm still high on this Oregon team. And I made a video on them yesterday, so go check it out. It's a big video, and I put a lot of effort into it. And I talked about the Ducks and their hopes of making the national title and how they can get there and why they can get there, so go check it out. But anyways, on to the next game. Number 21, Kansas at Iowa State. I did have Iowa State winning this game. I think Iowa State's a good team, despite being 5-4. And losing to Kansas, that's not terrible. Kansas has been pretty good this year. They're 7-2. Kansas' quarterback is playing a lot better than he was in his first game or two. But he had 287 yards passing, 14 for 23, 1 touchdown. Kansas slips away. They win at 28-21. Iowa State did play till the end, but it wasn't enough. And number 3, Michigan beating Purdue 41-13. Michigan's first game that they give up over 10 points. And Purdue, out of all the teams doing it, I'm a little shocked. But with the cheating scandals, Michigan might have a lot to deal with and might have a lot of pressure playing in these games. But I do think Michigan is one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country. But is the cheating going to catch up to them? We'll have to wait and see. J.J. McCarthy did have a good game. His completion percentage went a little down, but he still did throw for 335 yards, 24-37. Blake Corum didn't have a great rushing game, but he did have 3 touchdowns, but only ran for 44 yards. And on to the high-scoring game of Washington and USC. Washington, number 5 in the country, beat number 20 USC in the country, 52-42. This game was looking very back and forth. It could have went any way, but Washington really took over in the fourth quarter, and that's really when the best teams take over. They outscored them 10-0. And Washington, this may be a game that gets them back in the picture and playing well, because they got some good games coming up against Oregon State, Utah, and Washington State. Don't put that game under the radar. I know Washington State's been playing bad ball, but if Washington State plays their A game, they can compete with Washington. Definitely with the styles of playing that game. But USC, they got a really good offense, but their defense just couldn't get the job done. Some teams in the Pac-12 don't play defense, but I will give credit to the Pac-12. They are playing a lot better defense this year, but USC really brings them down. And on to the next game, number 14, LSU at number 8, Alabama. Alabama really took it over in the second half, and I've noticed it's kind of a repeat with every game. Alabama, they have a close first half, but then they just take it away in the second half. They're a tougher team. They play all 4 quarters. They're a really good team. Don't be surprised if this team beats Georgia. I've said it before. I might actually pick Alabama to beat Georgia. Alabama is a legit team, and I'm really high on this team. But Alabama did get the job done. Jaden Daniels got hurt in the 3rd quarter, tried coming back in, but it ultimately didn't work out for him. LSU really tried, but they couldn't get it done. Alabama wins 42-28. And on to the 10 o'clock Eastern games. Oregon State, number 16 in the country, beating Colorado 26-19. Not covering the spread, surprisingly. Colorado is really underperforming on offense. A lot of people would expect Colorado to score like 30 points a game with how they were playing the first half of the season. But they have a lot of work to do. They got to get some O-linemen. Deion Sanders got to figure some stuff out. I know this team has what it takes, but are they going to be on top? I don't know. Only time will tell. But Oregon State, they're still a good team. They'll move up in the polls a little bit after that win, even though it wasn't a super impressive win. They did give up 2 points to Colorado as they ran back a 2-point conversion, which is very rare. And on to the last top 25 game of the day. Arizona beating number 19 UCLA 27-10. This Arizona team is definitely going to be in my top 25. Arizona is really looking like a good team and very improved team from where they were at the start of the year. Arizona, don't be surprised if they are in the Big 12 championship next year. This team looks legit and they're only going to get better. They are pretty well coached and they play good defense too. Their defense has been playing good along with their offense being able to score some points. They have a pretty good quarterback and he's gotten a lot better. He went 25 for 32 in this game, threw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I will say UCLA, they really need to figure some stuff out with the quarterback spot. Ethan Garbers, he's not terrible, but he's just not doing it for UCLA. And Dante Moore wasn't either. But I'm telling you, this UCLA team is going to be good in a couple years. With that defense they have, with the head coach they have, and they have a young quarterback in Dante Moore who's going to be good. He just needs time to get better and improve. But that's going to do it for the video. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I really enjoy it. And also comment your input down below. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to hear some questions. I want to hear basically anything. And also, if you guys want a community to join, I created a Discord server. So join that Discord server. The link's in the description. We talk about college football on the server. So I hope you guys will want to join. And peace out, guys.